Our guest in this segment is Senator Brian Helton. He's a Republican out of Fayette County, and that is District 9. He is the chairman of the Select Committee on Substance Use Disorder and Mental Health and the vice chair of Interstate Cooperation. Senator Helton, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. You're on Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob, John, and Matt.
Well, good morning to you guys as well. I'm truly honored to be on this morning. I just want to give a shout-out to the powerhouse Senate team you guys have sent here from the Eastern Panhandle. Jason Barrett, our finance chair, Patricia Rucker, our chairman of government organization, Tom Willis is the vice chair of judiciary, and Darren Thorne is the vice chair of agriculture. So I tell you, I'm in a group of leaders when I'm with those four, and they all wanted this morning from our meeting to give everyone in the Eastern Panhandle a big shout-out this morning.
It's great to hear. We talk to Jason on a regular basis on Wednesdays on this show, and all four of those senators have been guests on this program numerous times, and we're always glad when they can make time for us, as we are glad to have you with us for the first time, Senator Helton.
Well,
thank you so
thank
much.
you. Yeah, and I have to suck up to Jason because he has the power of the purse as the finance chair.
Yes.
So when we want programs funded or we want things done that are important to our individual committees or to the Senate body as a whole, Jason's the guy that makes those final decisions through his committee, and he's just doing a fantastic job as first-year finance chair. And, of course, I've become really good friends with Matt Harvey. He's not only a county prosecuting attorney, he's also making big things happen across the state when it comes to substance use disorder, running the West Virginia First Foundation, and they're just a whirlwind. He's so active here in Charleston across the state and so well known in that community for helping save West Virginia from the biggest scourge we have right now of a lifetime, really. And if you look at it nationally, unfortunately, we're in last place right now when it comes to addiction rates and overdose rates. So I appreciate his efforts, and I really enjoyed getting to know him and just see some of the fabulous ideas and initiatives he has that are going to make a big difference all across West Virginia.
I believe it was 60 Minutes this past weekend that had a segment on Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family, and the sound bites that they aired from some of those depositions and what have you were striking and alarming in the feeling that was portrayed that they almost want to accept no responsibility whatsoever for this opioid epidemic. And West Virginia was hit particularly hard by this epidemic, Senator Helton. And hopefully, Matt, with what you're doing with the First Foundation, it will help to remedy some of this, at least a little bit of it.
Well, if it doesn't, then we've failed. The First Foundation will have failed if we can't make a difference. And I believe with the people that have chosen to be on the board and the executive director that was chosen and the team that he's put together, there will be a difference made. It's going to be a slow process. We're never going to get rid of addiction and drugs in our society. But our response to it has to change.
What made West Virginia so vulnerable?
What made it? Well, let me go back. Hold on. The Sackler family ought to be in prison for the rest of their lives, every single one of them. And, I mean, it would almost be worth giving the $40 billion or the $4 billion or whatever their little small contribution to this back just to see them in prison. It wasn't one thing, but it was a combination of things. It was obviously you have a population that through the work, the logging, the coal mining, and the manufacturing that would lead to workplace injuries. You had Purdue Pharma with their deceptive advertising. Well, they were liars. They weren't deceptive. They were lying about the potency and the addictive nature of OxyContin in its long-form use, and they were able to basically bribe and deceive doctors into prescribing it. And you had a lot of good people that thought they were doing the right thing, and then you had the greed that comes in behind that as well with the pill mills. And no federal or no government oversight that said, hey, this is 3 million pills to Kermit, West Virginia is way too many.
Senator Helton, your thoughts?
Yeah, he's down there.
No, but yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's exactly how this started, and West Virginia was certainly a target because of the nature of our workforce in large part, some of our socioeconomic issues. We were made a target, and we were hit hard by these big pharma companies, Purdue, Cardinal Health, all these different companies. You know, this West Virginia First Foundation money also includes the major chain drugstores that participated in this. So it was an all-out effort, an all-out assault to make billions of dollars while crippling West Virginia, while taking families. We have so many families shattered and broken across our state. This started decades ago, and it's just continued to show itself. And right now we're fighting a major battle to get back up and to get people pulled back up. And so I think there's a good opportunity with things we can do now. But I agree with everything that was said. We were clearly a target because of the nature of our industries here and our economies, the income levels. All these things made us a big target, and we're having a real hard time coming back from it. But I agree with the West Virginia First Foundation and this new focus we have in our legislature with our substance use disorder, which is the first time in the West Virginia Senate there's been a committee focused on that. With us working together and hitting this hard along with the governor's office, who seems very committed to jump in here as well, I think we're going to make a dent in this for the first time in decades.
So these pill mills, were they the big name national chains, or were they like Main Street Acme Pharmacy independent places for the most part, down where you live, Senator?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. Mainly the chains. So Walgreens is in there, Rite Aid, CVS, all those big chain drugstores were primarily a target or made us a target. So and it came from the big boys. You mentioned the Sackler family, Purdue Pharmaceuticals, Cardinal, all these big pharma companies that perpetrated this. And as Matt said, this was a great deception of the addictive properties of these drugs. And we're finding out now how addictive they were. We're finding out now how that story was perpetrated down through the medical community, through the doctors who really thought, in a lot of cases, they were doing the right thing with patients, and patients who unknowingly took these substances. And by the way, as we heard, in super large quantities inside our state, these pill mills were pumped in here. So we're finding out now what happened. And that's why I'm so excited about this opioid settlement case, because the First Foundation's doing a great job structuring themselves. The counties have money to deal with this now. The cities have money to deal with this now. So as Matt said, if we don't do the right thing right now and solve this, then shame on us. But I think we have a great plan and a great leadership team, all of us working together, that we're going to be able to make that difference in our state.
Is any of the spending going toward accountability? Because it seems to me that ultimately there were pharmacists, there were human beings who were handling these pills, that were giving out dozens, hundreds of pills to Charlie Jones over the course of time. And there has to come a point that they knew that they were doing something wrong. So is there an accountability piece to this settlement?
I think some of them have been prosecuted, have they not,
yeah,
Matt?
Some of them have been prosecuted, obviously. But that's not a piece of what the foundation's doing
Right. You're not law
to
enforcement.
regulate what doctors are prescribing. No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, there is guardrails on what spending can be used for under the First Foundation MOU, and that also applies to the counties as well.
Senator Helton, I want to switch gears here for a moment, and I
Sure.
want to talk to you about something that caught my eye when I was going through your list of legislation, because we've had these folks on the show locally a few times, and we were shocked to learn that they were operating under the same reimbursement schedule as they had when George Bush 43 was serving his first term. And that is a bill, SB 707, providing increase in salary to West Virginia birth to 3 contracted therapists and employees. I see that's in finance. Can you tell us about this bill and why it's important to you?
Sure, absolutely. So I sponsored this bill in response to a great program. It's Birth to 3. It deals with children who are having problems developing up till 3 years old. So from birth till 3, just as the program says, there's a special fund in West Virginia that's been created to compensate. And primarily, these are contract workers. They're not state employees per se that get full-time benefits, but they're full-time working on this issue. And so for the past 20-plus years, they've received 0 pay increase. We all know today how hard it is to find good people, and we know how hard it is with the inflation we've seen over the last several years the different things when we talk about groceries, gasoline bills, utilities, prescription drugs, all the things people have to put out. It's really getting difficult. As you can imagine, going 20 years without a pay raise is just ridiculous. This program is so vital to these young children who, in many cases, there aren't enough resources and not enough specialized people to deal with these children that really are having various developmental problems. And so this program is requesting that all those workers, for the first time in 20 years, get a pay increase of 25%. And by the way, that number doesn't even still really get us competitive, but at least it's a step forward to ensure we're able to keep these people in place so we're taking care of these babies.
Is there a fiscal note on that?
There is a fiscal note on that, and I've met with the finance department, Senator Barrett. I think everyone's on board to make this happen. So it'll go through. It went through our committee pretty quickly. Everyone approved it. Now we have to make sure we can afford all these things, and there's a huge list of priorities out there, so it's understandable. And again, I think we've got a good finance group that's going to look at this and make the right decision. But certainly I'm a big proponent for getting that funded. And, hopefully it's something we can even make effective on passage. I think the bill says by July 1st they would see these pay increases. So hopefully that happens and we can get this across the finish line and get everyone fairly compensated for great work they're doing in our state.
When Governor Justice was the governor of the state, it seemed like we had regular headlines of companies moving into West Virginia, millions of dollars being invested, and job creation. Obviously, we're very early on in the Morrissey tenure, but can we expect that to continue with economic development in the state?
Yeah, there's a lot of good things going. And, of course, a lot of these deals are under non-disclosure, so there's companies that are looking at West Virginia. I think the big thing, too, we need to look at our state is a comprehensive plan for economic development. The one-shot deals are great, and we need those, and we need to continue to work on them. And I've heard there's 4 or 5 really significant things going right now, particularly one I think that's been announced is for Mason County. But beyond that, we're going to have opportunities to set ourselves up so that we create a good, positive business environment. I think right now West Virginia is ranked 17th in terms of friendly places to do business. We need to get inside that top 10. So we passed through our group this week in government organization a bill that is going to eliminate the inventory tax on small businesses, large businesses, all businesses in West Virginia. We need to get rid of this inventory tax. None of the states that touch us have this tax. It essentially is taxing businesses for products and inventory, machinery, equipment, even fax machines that they don't sell and don't plan to sell. And we're imposing an extra tax on them, and it's really a tax without representation, and it's causing us to be at a huge economic disadvantage when it comes to attracting new companies in. So that's one move in the right direction. And then just overall, our tort reform, our tax structure needs to be one that wants to draw people into West Virginia. Additionally, we have to do something to get our workforce participation up, and so that's why a lot of my bills to our substance use disorder program are focused on just that, getting people back on their feet so that they're able to get sober and get participating in this workforce again.
Mr. Gilstrap or Mr. Harvey?
Well, the Senate bill to reduce or eliminate inventory tax, that would be a constitutional amendment, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
And would it? I'm just trying to think that ran a couple of years ago. In a with those 4 total amendments, and it was defeated, and it also included the vehicle tax at the time. Do you see like a different strategy or tailwinds for this one?
Yeah, I do, Matt. That whole scenario, as you mentioned, there were 4 separate amendments, and all of them did pretty different things. I think what we need to do is to be able to break these down one by one, which would be the plan for this, to get it on the ballot, to let West Virginians understand the whole context of that bill, whereas we're not fighting on 4 different fronts at the same time in order to get the information out. So I think once voters understand what it means to West Virginia and what sort of competitive disadvantage we're at that's really holding our economy back, I think it'll have a lot better tailwinds this time, and I think we'll see a lot more success. So, again, it still has to go through a few more steps throughout the legislature. It's just been through a committee at this point. So it would have to go through the full floor of the Senate, and then, as you know, the process all through the House. So we're a long way from the finish line, but I think those are the types of programs and moves we need to make to get these things out, to get our economy improved.
That revenue from those taxes goes to the counties and the
That's
school
correct.
board. Is there a
Right.
is it contemplated in this bill how that would be backfilled to the counties and school boards?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it does go back. There's a lot, again, there'll be a lot of negotiations on this bill and a lot of the mechanics behind the scenes. So I think a lot of that's still in discussion. And particularly once it goes through the Finance Committee, it'll have a lot of breakdown of exactly how these mechanics will work to get that money back where it needs to go.
I'm going through the West Virginia Bill Tracker matrix here, and some of these titles are really interesting. Senate Bill 8, providing additional sites and devices for newborn safe surrender. What is that?
John's a
Okay,
firefighter, former firefighter. He likes this one.
Go ahead. You want to take that one, John, or would you like me to?
No, John's the one that asked it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, John. Yes, sorry. Yeah, so this bill basically gives people who maybe don't have the resources, who have a young infant that they're unable to care for. We've seen the horror stories of babies just being abandoned, dropped off on the streets and dumpsters and other places, just inhumane things that would just sort of blow your mind. This gives an option and availability for a safe chamber at a fire department or other place where it's a totally secure, environmentally friendly place for the baby to be dropped off. They can do it anonymously without any repercussions, so there's no legal ramifications for people who don't, at that point in their life, they're in a crisis, in a lot of cases mental illness, a lot of cases substance use disorders, poverty, whatever the case may be. And there's a system set up where the babies are put into a chamber, and then after that happens, there's a notification to the personnel to come that the baby's there and to get the baby and then get them into the system and then make sure they're cared for.
A little extra job for A shift in the morning.
Yeah,
Sweep the
right.
floors, check the chamber.
or the overnight shift just leaves it for them in the
Yeah,
morning without
exactly.
an explanation.
Yeah, it's amazing we have to even talk about this kind of stuff and put these sort of things in place. But unfortunately, that's where we're at. I mean, we all see throughout our cities. If you go to any major city, I was telling Matt when he was here. We were driving together in the car through Charleston, and you just look around at the amount of homeless people. When you go to Huntington, it looks like San Francisco right now. It's like Kent City.
Yeah.
Beckley is getting close to the same. So you look around the state of West Virginia, and you see the amount of homelessness right here in the Mountain State. And by the way, this is starting to spread out to the counties. And so we have to really get moving on this stuff. And, right now we're 50th in addiction rate. We're 50th in overdose rate. We are the second per capita most prescription drugs put out, yet we're 50th in overall health outcomes. We have more children being taken from the home than any other state. Across all age groups and genders, we have the lowest workforce participation rate. I mean, you could just go on, and all of this, in my opinion, or at least 95% of this comes back to substance use disorders, this opioid crisis we have going on in our state right now.
And lack of jobs.
Correct. And it sort of goes vice versa.
Yeah.
When we're recruiting companies to come in, we need to prove a workforce. And we need to be able to solidly say, hey, we can handle this. We've got the people to do it. And so that's a big part, is getting our workforce participation back. And I firmly believe that when we're able to get people back on their feet and through this recovery process to a point where they can participate, we're going to see our economy turn around like never before. I was speaking to our former finance chair, Eric Tarr, and our GDP in West Virginia is $80 billion. And when you look at these numbers, we went through them together, you can tie 10% of that $8 billion directly to this SUD, substance use disorder problem. When you look at the amount of taxing efforts that goes into our overworked hospitals, our overworked CPS and foster care system, law enforcement, EMS, it's just a staggering amount of money that we're spending because of this issue we have going on in our state right now. And so, it's really a threefold effort. The first is prevention. I don't think we're spending enough money on the front end because we have a lot of children.
Brian, I'm sorry, I got to jump in on you because I got a hard stop at 9:31.
Sure.
I want to thank you very much, and I hope we can have you back on again soon because there's so much more to talk about.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you guys so much for having me this morning.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Have a good day.